Being a psychiatrist, we've always tried to fight our own space in the medical fraternity, and we make a lot of changes. We try to make a lot of changes in society, and we get a lot of negative comments, trolled. So I thought, let me speak. When the organizers came to me and asked me, sir, what would you like to speak on? I thought suddenly our life post COVID has become very, very fast. We have been sucked into a space, a phase where we actually are unable to come back from. Look at our kids, look at the adolescents, look at the adults, everybody. So I thought, let us work on the, talk of the topic mob mentality in the current Anno Domini era. That is the, the post-corona or the corona period has seen a rapid revolution in how things in technology have moved. And I think we've become much faster. I still think and pause that, gosh, we would have gone back maybe 10 years or 15 years back. Life was so good. Life was so nice. Now we have everything except happiness. We show that we are very happy to be everybody around us, but we are all alone, very unhappiest soul. And being a psychiatrist, I see the majority of my population who appear absolutely fine. If you look at their social media posts, if you look at where they go, if you look at what they wear, if you look at the company they keep, I think they should have been the happiest. But are we? Am I? No, I don't think so. That's where I started thinking, why? What makes us unhappy even though we try to be happy? We try our best, our parents try our best, our family tries our best, our teachers try our best, everybody around us try our best, but where are we going wrong? So I thought, let me speak on the whole mob mentality, how we are running like a herd, not understanding where we want to go. We are running just because 100 people are running in one direction, not understanding which direction, which place will give me happiness. So the first, from childhood I was seeing, a small child has taken a 2 rupee coin from somewhere, he's caught, and 10 people are hitting him. The first instant of, mob mentality. But I was watching a cricket match in Barbati Stadium, and India suddenly lost quite a few wickets, and India was not in a position to win the match. And I saw a lot of people throwing stones, throwing water bottles, spitting on bottles, throwing. And then I thought, what makes people behave like this? These people were absolutely fine. The person sitting right next to me was talking so nicely. He's such a nice gentleman. He's a nice father. He's a nice brother. He's a nice whatever. But what happened suddenly that makes him behave like this? Behavior that he would never ever have thought of. So maybe that is. I thought this is something of the new era. Maybe the last 20, 25 years, something like this has happened. No. If you look at mob mentality, it's from billions of years. The bacteria used to work together. They had a common goal that was known as the quorum culture. So it is there in nature. The whole mob mentality is not something that is not there in us. But there are situations, there are personality factors, there are issues that make us behave the way we behave. And that's where, and I started to look at literature, how many studies have been done regarding this. Except a few blogs or 1 or 2 studies, I didn't find much about mob mentality, the psychology behind it. And based on the current things where we actually don't appear dangerous. Before the mobs used to collect, hundreds of people used to collect, throw stones, but now nobody is throwing stones. We are all very dignified people, very, very well-behaved people. But what we do on the phones, what we do on the mobiles, what we do on our laptops is much more dangerous and much more serious. And we actually are not guilty of what we are doing. We have no insight into what we are doing. That is where I looked into it. So what is mob mentality? You can talk it as herd mentality, pack mentality, group thinking together, or maybe a crowd psychology. But if you look at the definition, Webster's definition is very, very clear. It is a large and disorderly crowd of people. So large, disorderly crowd of people, especially one bent on riotous or destructive behavior. So if the whole MKCG people decided that they are going to do a TEDx talk with 8 or 9 speakers, this is not a mob mentality because there was nothing destructive around it. So here there is a large people, there are orderly people. Everybody is sitting, they are maintaining silence, maintaining discipline, maintaining COVID guidelines, they are courteous. So this is not actually a mob mentality. So what is the everyday mob mentality? If you look at everyday mob mentality, the way we eat, we go to places, we wear certain type of dresses, if we see some series, we are all governed by a mob mentality. We ask our friends, what is the latest series in Netflix that is doing well? Which restaurant is doing well? What is the best place to go and take a photograph? Which is the best place to travel? So sometimes this thing helps us. It saves time and we are part of the crowd. We are not isolated. We are not made to look something different from everybody else. But then there is a caveat to it. Every personality has a set of ideas, he has a set of thought processes, he has a personality of his own. Remember this. We all, no two people are think alike, act alike, work alike. But what happens when the mob gets together? The mob has its own mind. Everybody's mind is subsumed under the mob mentality, and the mob starts thinking in a different way. So that is what is actually mob mentality. I read a couple of books on mob mentality. I didn't got much, but the most interesting and the best book was this, Among the Thugs. It's a book by Bill Burford. If you look at hooliganism, if anybody is a football buff, you must have seen the Euro Cup where England lost the finals. And what happened actually? You must have seen the hooliganism. So actually, there's a beautiful quote he gave. A crowd is like a patient to a doctor. They hypnotize to the hypnotist. So what a crowd behaves, how a crowd, they actually behave in a very, very different manner to what they actually would have behaved like. So if you look at a small group of people, suppose there are 10 or 12 people, and there are 1 or 2 people who might influence them to form a decision. But when the crowd becomes huge, suppose there are thousands and thousands of people who have gathered there. So if you look at the opinion leaders, if you look at the group leaders, they disseminate. There is no uniformity in the decision making, in the whole message that they carry. So that is what happened. If you look at this whole diagram which I have given, so if you look at the decision maker, there are less in this slide. But when they increase, the whole message, the way they should act, the way they should behave, disseminates. That is what is happening in our internet age, where we don't know. I have sent one message in WhatsApp that X thing happened in Barampur while the TEDx talk was occurring, and it disseminates to the entire country. It might take matter of minutes or hours. We all, every person is maybe in 10 to 15 groups. It's a very conservative average. 10 years back, we were connected to maybe 30, 40 people. But today, we are connected to, an average person is connected to maybe 2,000 to 3,000 people. That is how much connected we are. We are connected, we are actually very, very disconnected. And that is what internet is actually doing. If you look at these signs, who all are part of the mob mentality, the person who is participant to a mob thinks he's invulnerable. There are 1,000 people in this. If I throw a stone, if I break this, if I send the message, if I send a negative thing, nothing will happen to me because everybody around me is doing this. So I am invulnerable. Suppose we are in a group and we decide that today we have to do this. Our principal or our ex has done something which may be true, which might not be true, but yes, let us go and do something in the office. Now there are 2 voices who are rational, who are logical, who are good, who want to tell that no, let us not do that. Let us try, first of all, find out what has happened, what has not happened. But no, the dissenting opinions are always rationalized. No, that is not right. That is not correct. And the group's whole moral standard should apply to all people. If 80 people among 100 are telling that this should be done, the whole standard should be applied to everybody in the group. That is how things are done. And the next most important thing is the illusion. So everybody is on the same page. Even though everybody is not on the same page, you must have looked in groups. If you're part of a WhatsApp group, if you're part of any other group, maybe a Facebook, maybe LinkedIn, maybe Snapchat, there are different groups nowadays. But the most important and the most destructive group are the WhatsApp groups who disseminate every false information. Like suppose I had corona and I'm asymptomatic and I took this vaccine tomorrow. I am symptomatic or I'm asymptomatic, I'm having corona. I took the vaccine tomorrow, I took the vaccine today and tomorrow I developed fever. Now I write in my group that because I took the vaccine, I have fever. So this vaccine actually does not reduce the chance of me having corona. It actually made me corona. So this information takes maybe a second, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, because we always play the fastest finger. Our fingers are developed technologically, but our mind and our hearts are not developed. We're still not up to it, remember this. So fingers are working much more than our mind and our hearts. So let us take a pause when we disseminate information, when we, be part of the whole mob mentality. So there's a bystander effect. What are the things that actually make us behave like what we actually behave and the way we should not be behaving? One is the bystander effect. If there are 500 people in this auditorium and I felt unconscious here, you see, everybody will be thinking he will get up and help this doctor. He will must be thinking he will get up. So this is actually the bystander effect. We are less likely to help if others are around. If I was alone and you were alone and if I had fallen down, 100% you would have come on stage and would have helped me on my feet. This is the bystander effect. The opposite is the upstander effect. On the street and we see an accident happening and we see there are 100 people there. We don't stop our vehicles. We don't go and see whether the patient is alive, dead, bleeding, not bleeding. We just see through our car windows. Yes, the patient is okay. Let's go. He's not okay. Somebody will take him. But if I was alone and if I would have seen somebody lying on the ground, I would have stopped my vehicle, got down, checked his pulse, maybe called 100. And so let us be the upstander. Let us not be the bystander. So next is the the way we disseminate things. It is his responsibility. It is my responsibility. Everybody's responsibility is nobody's responsibility. So that is what we should believe in. But we should not do those things. If there are 100 people who have been given one work, the chances of the work being completed is much less. But if every person is given one responsibility, this is your work. If the guests come, you have to attend to them. This is your work. You have to attend to what they eat. This is the way you should understand where they will sit. So everybody has their own responsibilities and they work accordingly. Same happens in social media. It is not my responsibility to be responsible for my action. Everybody else is doing this. I would also do that. That's what we are doing, because nobody is ready to stand up and tell, no, what you're doing is wrong. This is not how it should happen. So if you look at the Ku Klux Klan, there's a clan, they're very, very dangerous. They have a set of ideas which are absolutely violent, aggressive, and very regressive. So there's a concept known as de-individuation. It is the loss of self-awareness and self-restraint occurring in group situations that foster arousal and anonymity. So everybody has a mask. If you look at social media, whom we are talking to, whom we are being connected to, we don't know. Most of the times we don't know. I have to ask people, whom am I talking to? If somebody texts me, if somebody tells me, I want to see the face behind the message. Is it you? Is it somebody else? The moment you become anonymous, the best example I can give you is wherever there are CCTV cameras, even if it is written that you are under CCTV surveillance, the chances of crime occurring reduces, the chances of something wrong going reduces. So also, the more anonymous you become, the more you go to your banal self, you go to your lowest self. You want to do things which you would normally have never done if you would have known that people are looking at you. So that is a very, very important concept. Selection. Who goes to a mob? Everybody comes to a place where should I join? Should I not join? So selection is a very, very important aspect. You go or you don't go. So what makes you go actually? So the most important thing is the individual characteristics of the man, what I am, as well as the emotional state I am going and the emotion of the crowds. So emotions are very, very important. Acceptability, whether I am accepted, I need to be accepted only if I go into the crowd, do what everybody around me is doing. We are all fighting to be accepted, no? We are all fighting for validation. We are all fighting to be liked. We are all fighting to do things. So if 90 people are, kicking somebody, and I feel that people will like me if I kick this individual, even if I know that this is the wrong thing I'm doing, I do those things. At the end, what I'm doing is, everybody might be liking me, but I'm not liking myself. And at the end, what matters is what I think about myself, not what people think about you. So that is where our perspective has to change, and that is where we are going wrong. I'm sorry to say that. So if you look at crowd, if you look at groups, if you look at actually mobs, initially the civil, fights and all, even if you look at our independence, a lot of people talk about, our father of the nation not doing the right thing, but I think there was a clear message, there was a clear leader, there's a clear way to go about things. Using non-violence, very, very clear. We want freedom, and it will be a non-violent manner. So it was very, very well organized. But if you look at the social media, if you look at the current internet, what is happening, it is unorganized. When I set the cat among the pigeons, what happens we don't know. Where it goes, how it goes. If you play the Chinese whisper, you know what happens. I have whispered something, but the moment it reaches the 10th person, the message is something wrong, it has gone haywire. So structure is very, very important if we want to do something in terms of a mob only, not in terms of a destruction, in terms of a collective crowd, dissension. We need to, we are a democratic country. We need to oppose people in terms of their policies, in terms of their thought processes, in terms of the program. That doesn't mean we take it to a personal level. What is happening currently is that everything is being taken on a personal level. If you don't like me, it's okay. If you don't like the way I talk, it's okay. If you don't like the way I think, it's okay. But then getting into personal space is the wrong thing, and that's what is happening nowadays. And that's where we have to be very, very careful. We might get sucked into it. We might be affected by it, or we might affect somebody in the long run, and we might cause, you don't know what the current phase. Why I'm so worried about what is happening, what will happen to our kids, what will happen to you all. It's very sickening, and it's very, very, internet, the whole social media thing. Is it a failed state? These questions come to my mind many times. So starting from how communication occurred to the current level of communication post corona, even a 6-month, 8-month-old child is holding a mobile. If you look at the 1950s, data was stored like this. Now if you look at current generation, even a small mobile worth 6,000 rupees carries much more data than what was there in 1950s. A whole huge auditorium like this would have stored that much data that was stored in this mobile. So the whole digital era has given rise to the term as digital mob or the virtual mob. What we are doing day in, day out is the virtual mobbing. Be it LinkedIn, be it WhatsApp, be it Facebook, be it Snapchat. Hundreds of sites are there, hundreds of anonymous sites are there where people are being trolled, people are being roasted, people are being, what not is being done. It is the dark, dark side of the whole digital era. If you look, this is a recent, statistics of how, cyber bullying, and it's the highest in our country, and that's a very sorry state of affair. So actually, what is a troll? Now people ask, what is a troll? It is actually defined as a deceptive and disruptive online behavior, which typically involves posting inflammatory and malicious comments to deliberately provoke and upset people. A lot of people actually provoke, upset us, so that we can retaliate, we can resort, or we can do something that will give them more chance to get back on us. So actually, who are the trollers? They are Machiavellian, so they have a different, they do everything to get their own profits. They are narcissistic. They only have their self before anything, and they are psychopaths. They have different faces online, they have different faces offline. They want their own needs, they have their own grandiosity, they want to project themselves as the most superior class, and we have these WhatsApp variants everywhere now. So, and the most important and the most distressing part of the whole trolling is the allure of anonymity. Nobody knows who is doing this. Somebody is trolling in your website, somebody is coming to your site and telling things, and you don't know who is doing it actually. And this whole anonymous thing is killing everybody, if not physically, psychologically. Psychology of a troll, the primary motive of the troller is attention. So if somebody is trolling you, please don't give him attention, because the person only needs attention. You retaliate, he retaliates back. You speak something, he speaks more. So just ignore a troller. Don't give too much of importance to a troller. So this is a picture posted by a celebrity, and just look at the comments that comes from a joker to, everybody feels that if I write, if the whole mood of the, if somebody writes, you look like a joker, another 15 people are waiting, they'll just write, yes, you look like a joker, you look like a joker. Somebody writes, you have done this, and 100 people, the whole emotions get carried away. Even if I don't want to write, I am not nasty, I am not so vicious, but then I want to do it because everybody else is doing it, and it seems right. Because everybody is doing it, even though I don't feel it is right, I need to do it. That is the typical mob psychology. So if actually you are trolled, what do? How to handle a social media crisis is very, very important. Number one, understand the psychology of somebody who is doing it to you. He wants to be mean, he wants to be vicious, he wants to get on to you, he wants to get back to you. Don't allow those things to happen. I don't mean that you always ignore people, but if you have to understand if somebody is angry with you or somebody actually wants to pull you down. That is where you have to differentiate. If somebody is angry because of something, you can always respond in a very, very good manner. That is, maybe that was the problem, that is why you took it. But then you have to understand who is doing it for attention. Ignore them. Don't engage with them. If you engage with them, you will lose it, and they actually want you to lose it. Don't suffer in silence. If somebody is crossing limits, somebody is getting into your personal space, somebody is writing things which are nasty, which are denigrating, you have to contact use humor. Yeah, last night I was just going through Insta of Harbhajan Singh. He posted a picture of the 2017 World Cup, India winning the World Cup. Actually, and he had put an emoji of a cup. So somebody wrote, you have deliberately, taken out the picture of Mahendra Singh Dhoni because you don't like. Harbhajan Singh posted the full picture. Do you see what he has written? There's a photographer's image which he had actually put a emoji on it. When he was trolled, he responded with a very humorous comment. Now you can look what you see in the picture. I cropped because somebody accused him of cropping Mahendra Singh Dhoni's picture. So this is how we can always respond to humor. We can be patient. We should not be what we are not supposed to be. Let us think in our own individual way. Let us not always jump. Let us always stand and fight, not jump into the trenches. Let us be what we are. Let us be normal. Let us be happy. Thank you so much.